What gets you from zero to, let's say, 500,000 of revenue or ARR works against you. The very thing that you do, I see it all the time, all these incredibly motivated, positive, delusionally positive, actually, founders say, I'm just going to do what I did, and they can't because it works against you.
Welcome to Relationship Capitalists, where super connectors share how they build trust, create value, and thrive when AI changes everything. In a world where expertise is being commoditized, your ability to build and sustain high-value human connections is what sets you apart. I'm your host, Jason Masciarelli. Let's dive in. Welcome to Relationship Capitalists. I'm your host, Jason Masciarelli. Today, I'm joined by Dan Tyre, founder and CEO of Tyre Angel, limited partner and operating partner at Stage 2 Capital, speaker, author, advisor, and lots more. Dan has spent decades helping companies grow from startup stage to billion-dollar at scale while mentoring leaders and investing in mission-driven founders. Today, we explore how relationships, culture, attitude, and generosity become strategic assets for building companies, developing leaders, and driving meaningful impact. Let's dive in. Hey, Dan, great to see you. Thanks for joining me today.
Super pumped. Oh my goodness. I tend to be a little festive and upbeat, right? That big energy, which is like really fun when you're listening to a podcast, but kind of annoying if you live with me, but we don't have to worry about that for you or your podcast listeners today.
Excellent. Where are you connecting in today from?
I'm in Paradise Valley, Arizona, which, when's the last time you were in Arizona?
It's been about 3 years.
I never thought I'd live in Arizona. Old people and golf courses, two things I don't really like. And I sold my second company to a Phoenix-based company, moved here in 1997, and I've been here for 28 years. And Paradise Valley, for people who are familiar with the area, is this little enclave between Scottsdale and Phoenix. Phoenix is now the 5th largest city in the United States, and amazing transformation. And the entrepreneurial ecosystem here is amazing. But I spend 75% of my time on the road, so it's good to be back, sitting in my chair, talking to you, getting all pumped up and excited, feeling grateful for having worked out this morning. And I just took my buddy Andrew Quinn for a burger. Andrew and his wife. Andrew was one of the first people at HubSpot and had a 15-year run, and just a super nice guy, and we scraped to catch him.
Yeah, awesome. Fantastic. I always feel better with a good workout in the morning as well.
Yes. I never was a gym guy. In fact, I avoided the gym. I kind of lied. I'd say, no, I got a business meeting, and even if I didn't, or no, I'm feeling under the weather. And then when I transitioned from HubSpot in 2024, my wife said, and my son said, time for you to get to the gym. And I didn't know if I'd like it. And now I'm a gym head. Now I'm compulsive and obsessive. I love going to the gym. I love pushing myself. I go to a foo-foo gym now. So we do lifting and we do breathing. And my goal is to live to 120.
Yeah, awesome.
There was a entrepreneur that I was talking to yesterday. He's like, I have a institute for reversing aging. And I'm like, that's pretty interesting. He's like, yeah, in the next 10 years, we can have you reverse your aging by 20 years. How old are you, Jason?
I'm going to be 55 in December.
All right. Would you like to be your 35-year-old self with your same wisdom, but have the 35-year-old body?
Absolutely.
Okay, who wouldn't?
Yeah. I'm working on it every day, but it's not going fast enough.
That's because the science isn't there yet, but it's going to be, right? And my son, who's an AI safety researcher, says that in our lifetime, we'll be able to greatly reduce aging and then reverse it so that people will have much longer lifestyle, longevity. And he said he thinks he can make it to 300, right? Now, would you like to live until you're 300?
I'm not quite sure.
That means you know your grandkids, right? That means if you were around for 300 years, you would have known George Washington. You would have been through the Civil War. You've been through the Vietnam War. You've been World War I, World War II. And if you could be through all of that with your same wisdom, it's interesting, intellectual.
It's a different perspective on life for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I can tell as I get towards 60, I start thinking differently about the time I have left. For sure.
Amazing. Not only that, but you supposedly don't get real wisdom until you're 55, right?
Yeah.
Think of all the dopey things you did.
I'm almost there.
it's not exact date, but like I know when I look back on all of the twists and turns in my career, right? A lot of bad judgment early because I didn't have the benefit of experience. And now you've done a lot of things right, a lot of things that you can like improve upon. And that philosophy with that mindset, living another 100 years, right, should be a plus plus for all humanity.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right. That was a little bit of a tangent, but welcome to the Dan Tyre podcast. There we go.
So, I'd love to have you look back across your career in terms of building, advising, investing, mentoring, and, think about one relationship that's really changed the trajectory of your life and your career.
First of all, relationship management, incredible concept. On record, as Tyre Wisdom says, every business is a people business, right? And relationship management is the intentional way in which you cultivate those relationships. Can I do more than one?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. If you get a couple great ones, that would be great.
I'm overcheater, so I'm going to do three. Number one, my buddy Roger Lund, who I met in 1981, and then I was working for the worst run company in American business. This company was called The Computer Store. It had an exclusive to sell Apple computers east of the Mississippi, and they found a way to screw that up. They had horrible leadership, horrible nepotism, inventory problems. It was a quagmire of dysfunction. And Roger was a band leader from the Midwest who had some pretty good sales chops. He was very, very calm, never swore. And in 1982, he came into the office and he said, "I'm quitting." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I'm quitting my job." I'm like, what? He's like, "I'm going to a startup." I'm like, "What's a startup?" He goes, "It's a small company that's going to go quicker." And I'm like, "Okay, knock yourself out." He goes, No. I want to bring you with me." And I'm like, "I already got a job." He goes, "I'll give you $75 more a month." And I'm like, boom, I'm a startup guy. And when you're 22 years old, man, that is like a realistic kind of thing. So I quit and I started a company. I started with a company that had $100,000 worth of revenue. And in the next 9 years, it went to $1.4 billion when $1 billion was real money. Right. And I started as a salesperson for the company. It was called Businessland, sold computers and networks and services. I moved from a bag carrying salesperson, individual contributor to a sales manager, then to a sales director, then to an area director. And my last responsibilities there was in the New York area, running an organization of 300 people, $250 million worth of revenue, and 30% of the profits of a publicly traded company. And if Roger hadn't quit and gone to a startup, who knows what I'd be doing.
And thought well enough of you to have you join him on his journey.
Amazing. And it gets even better than that because the second day, the computer store sued me because I had signed a non-compete. And I'm like, "What's a non-compete?" I didn't even know what it was. And Roger had to get on the phone with Dave Norman, the CEO of Businessland, and say, "All right, they want $200,000 to let Tyre out of his non-compete. Is this guy worth $200,000? And Roger, God bless his soul, said he's worth every penny. So they paid $200,000 the second day that I was there, and then I ran the table, right? It was a great relationship for both of us. I learned exactly what you said at the top of the hour, that every business is a people business. I learned that there's some regional differences because I worked in Boston and Framingham and San Francisco and LA and New York and the tri-state area of Boston. And the most important thing, in fact, the only thing that really matters, right, is the people, right? And so thank you, Roger. If you're listening, I'm forever indebted to you. A second was a friend of mine, Steve Levy. I had hired his son as a marketing support rep when I worked for Businessland, and his dad was the CEO of a Cambridge-based company. And he was a very, very smart guy, and he modeled a positive attitude wherever he went. Right. And as the CEO of Fortune 500 companies, see him interact with elevator operators and people at the front desk. It was amazing. He always had a smile. He was always upbeat, never condescending. And then when I started my second startup, he invested in it and helped me assemble a blue chip board of directors. Amazing guy. And along the way, he was a great mentor. When I was freaking out, I would ask him, like, "What do I do in this situation?" He always knew. he was incredibly articulate. And I'm like, all right, can I pay you? And the only thing he wanted back is when I was successful, that I would give back to the community. That's why my tagline is to do the most good for the universe, and why I started the Tyre Mentorship Program is to help people, because I just wanted to give back the way Steve gave back to me. And then the third is Halligan. Brian Halligan is the co-founder of HubSpot, and amazing guy. I work with Brian in my fourth startup, Groove Networks, and it got sold to Microsoft. And then when they started HubSpot, they asked me to join as employee number 6, right? And it recruited me, and knew that I was a good startup guy. And I was in HubSpot for 17 years. Brian is still an amazing friend, really good. He's got a variety of different attributes, but he speaks so eloquently on what it's like being the CEO of a high achieving tech company, how you scale, how you move from different segments. And so it's always good to see him, and incredibly impactful as a way of being a pivotal relationship in my life.
Yeah. Wow. Those are 3 fantastic examples. I mean, talk about changing the trajectory of your life. That's amazing. That's great.
I'm like the Forrest Gump of technology. I work with Steve Jobs, which is a whole different kind of thing. When I was at Businessland, right, Steve had the Next computer company, and we had an exclusive to sell Next computers, right? So Steve would come to Manhattan when I was running the tri-state area, and we'd bring Steve Jobs to 50 companies, right? And that was an education. He wasn't the easiest guy to get along with. I'm sure that's in the public domain. Right. And I was a little bit of a hothead, so we mixed it up a little bit. That's amazing. I met Bill Gates multiple times. Right. Just amazing being at the forefront of the PC and revolution, and then the internet revolution, then the smartphone revolution, and now the AI revolution. Has been an amazing lifetime.
So it sounds like you've got obviously a very broad relationship network. You've also got a very deep one, obviously, especially with these examples and the ones you keep coming up with. So what has stayed consistent in the way that you build relationships across kind of over the duration of your career?
Yeah, it's amazing, because the whole thing about relationship management is the thing, right? Every business is a people business. I realized that in the early 1980s. Right, that the what you're selling or managing or customer service may change just a little bit, right? But what really matters is the people, and it's even more important in the AI age, because we'll have all the answers. What we won't have is the human aspect of engaging as like social animals. So for me, I try really hard to actually listen. I know it doesn't sound like it on this podcast, but I try very, very hard to listen and understand what people are saying and why, right? I'm also a pretty big observer of human interaction, right? When I'm talking to somebody in a one-on-one situation, I hear what they're saying, but what I'm really looking at is their shoulders and their eyebrows. And your shoulders don't lie. Have you ever heard that phrase? Right?
I have not. Oh, that's great. Love it.
And right, the way people respond to you. Right. I'm a big believer in business trust, and trust isn't talked about enough in the workplace. But if you don't have trust in a professional or personal relationship, you don't have anything. Right. And so in my HubSpot career, entire Angel career, right, I ask people, do we have high trust? And if we do, they're like, yep. Just like that. And if we don't, they're like, I think so. And that's an indication their shoulders slump and their eyebrows go up, because, right, they don't really they're like, no one's ever asked me that question. And then the next question is, all right, if maybe we need to build that trust, then I ask them, how are we going to do it? And it's all leads into the next part is the way we control that process is we ask questions. And I've got natural curiosity. Right. Just like at the beginning of this podcast, right? We went on for 8 minutes because I was very, very interested in you, where you're coming from. That's where you told me all about relationship management. I'm like, okay, this guy has it figured out. Those observing human dynamics, right, are critically important. And it's kind of advanced kind of stuff. It's not necessarily hard, but you got to realize that in certain cultures, people are trained to say things, right, that may not emulate exactly what they're feeling. And like getting to the gist of that is very important. The other thing that I found is that when I'm managing people, I always want their goals. I want to understand what they want to do. Right. So once we get the trust thing, I'm like, all right, well, what do you want to do? Is this a job for you? Is this a career advancement? Is like, do you want to push hard? Do you want to like just mail it in? How do you want to do it? And that has served me very, very well for understanding human dynamics. And if people weren't on board with like charging up the mountain in my early career, I'm like, okay, well, you can't be part of the club. And then I realized as the companies got larger that that was a critically important and very valuable part. If somebody just wants to come to work and put in their 50 hours every week and they're a good team player, a good sense of humor, and that's the stage of life that they're in, then that can be very, very valuable. And getting into the details, right? The mentorship program is all about write out your 1 year goals, right? And then write out your 5, 10, or 20 years goal, which is ever easier so that I can understand it, because in a business relationship, I'm responsible 50% responsible for getting you to where you want to go. And so, number one, you make all the decisions. Number two, I want to understand and review it on a regular basis. There's tons of people managers, which is a great attribute, right? Some people are data managers. Some people are sales managers. The best kind of managers in 2026 are people managers who can understand these relational management kind of things and really understand what motivates folks. Right. And then it was hard for me early in my career, but I always tell the truth, right? Even if it's hard, right? Even in simplest interactions, even if somebody says something that doesn't quite pass my sniff test, I'm like, oh, that's not what I'm seeing. Or wait a second, that's not really the way I think that's playing out. Or do you think that's the way that's being received? And that transparency and the simple of interaction and having a different point of view has served me very well. And then it's all the Socratic method, right? I'm always asking, okay, do you have good problem discovery? Do you know what the problem is? And sometimes they say yes. Sometimes I'm like, let's just drill it down. Explain to me what the problem is so that we can really understand it. And then once we have good problem definition, then I'm like, all right, what are your options? And they're like, that's why I came to you. And I'm like, no. I'm not going to do all the work, right? There's a famous book called The 1 Minute Manager. You can't use The 1 Minute Manager. It is so dated, right? It's like condescending, and it's not the way that we run modern business. But the basic kind of thing is the way we out people is we help them understand, right, what the problem is, and then they describe what the options are, and then they have to make their own decision. Because I was just lecturing at Tufts in Boston, and in front of 200 22-year-olds, and I asked them, what would your life be like if you always made the right decision? And they'd be like, oh, that'd be great. Oh, my goodness. I'm like, okay, here's the deal. Like 50% of the decisions you make will be right. And especially women, we want to make sure that you celebrate your right decision. You're like, yes, I made the right decision. I want you to say it out loud. And everybody thinks that that's kind of weird. And it is kind of weird, but we have to celebrate our good decisions, right? If you make the wrong decision, right, you fall into that pothole. It's not necessarily a mistake, but those are actually where you learn the best lessons, right? Once you make a horrible mistake, you're like, okay, I'm never going to do that again, right? And, all the business books and podcasts, they all say the same thing, right? You dust yourself off, move on, but it's not the same until you do it. So the best thing you could do if you're 25, 30, even like 50, you fall into all these potholes so that you actually learn, right? My beautiful wife, Amy, says the growth is in the discomfort, right? And 100% right. You're either right and celebrate it, or your focus needs to be, okay, not shoulda, woulda, coulda. I'm not a big shoulda, woulda, coulda guy. A lot of, somewhere along the line, like 20 years ago, I'm like, why would you spend one MIP trying to figure out something that you can't change? Right. The next version is, okay, next time I'm going to, like I have learned my lesson. That's part of celebrating success. And it's part of making sure that you're moving in a positive growth mindset so that you're not recasting all the old blame, hitting yourself up, creating all this head trash, which is endemic of the 2026 mindset.
Yeah. Love it. So when did this all come together for you? When did it all click? Like you weren't born this way. So how did it all come? Or maybe you were.
No. It wasn't until I was 30 where I realized there's a great book called Learned Optimism. Do you know Learned Optimism?
I don't know.
Martin Siegelman. Look it
Okay.
up. The guy is amazing. And in the family that I was raised, you kind of being happy was something that you did maybe a small percentage of the time. And when I was 30, I'm like, wait a second, there are people happy all the time. How can that be? Right? They don't just have an hour to be happy every week. And then what I realized is you can be as happy as you want to be. And Learned Optimism by Martin Siegelman talks about, right, how you create the environment, right? How 99% of your life is between your two ears. And you could take anything, any interaction that you have, and you can spin it in a positive fashion. We gave a couple of examples, but that growth mindset is incredibly important. And because I'm compulsive and obsessive, as soon as I learned that, I'm like, oh, baby, this is going to be amazing. I am going to be the happiest guy in Danville. I am going to like merrily fall into all these potholes, do all this crazy stuff, but it's going to be interesting. I'm going to learn a lot of lessons and let's go. And then I realized that people mostly like the big energy. They're like, okay, that's kind of weird. You're pretty loud. And it's a little bit contagious. So when I do my public speaking or when I'm working one-on-one, I ask people, do you want the big energy or do you want me to talk like a college professor with multi-syllable words? And most people want the big energy because, just like we said, it's a little bit contagious. So learned optimism means that life is for you. It doesn't happen to you, which my buddy Billy Jones just said. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Billy, that is wisdom. And he's like, yep, no matter what happens, you got to deal with it. You can deal with it with positive attitude. And once I realized that, all of the things like before that, like imposter syndrome and beat myself up with the strengths or the weaknesses I have, all that kind of stuff, just like any other human being, was part of my life. And then I'm like, now throwing that stuff out. I'm going to do the stuff that I want to do. I'm going to focus on my strengths. I'm going to lean in and I'll be, lead the best life that I possibly could. And once that kicked in, it manifested all of this great stuff so that I go all over the world. Been married 37 years, have 2 socially responsible kids. I was a damn good entrepreneur. And then Halligan invited me to join HubSpot as employee number 6. And that put my career all to a different level. And then I'm like, okay, I wonder if I could do it on my own. So I started Tyre Angel. We have 23 portfolio companies worth about $500 million, which is pretty good. And then the state capital thing, right? My buddy Mark Robert said the magic words. He's like, Tyre, I need your help. And I'm like, okay, what do you need? And been working with Sean Poe on the Stage 2 Capital Catalyst program. It's been amazing and incredible and fun. And so every day, right, I get so pumped up, right? Have you ever heard of something called the mood meter?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you send out an email or something like that, include the mood meter. But if you haven't heard of the mood meter, podcast listeners, just Google mood meter. It's in the public domain. When you ask every man in the world, how you doing? What do they say, Jason?
Okay.
Exactly.
We're good.
So you got to doubt. You're a little bit too energetic when then they go, I'm good. I'm okay. Right. And then what's the problem with that, Jason?
It's just they're sending it in. They're not giving the real authentic answer.
Number one, it's not authentic, so they're lying. Number two, they haven't even scanned their body to understand how they're feeling, right? What we want them to do is like, and some people have never done a body scan. I'm like, how are your shoulders feeling? How are those knee? And I'm not talking about like you got a false knee or something like that. I'm like, I want you to go from the top to the bottom and I want to understand how you're like feeling. And then I want you to say, I am sad and tense. Or in my instance today, I'm festive and upbeat. They should rename those boxes, Dan Tyre boxes, because festive and upbeat at the top end of the mood meter. That's where I live, right? And sometimes a little harder than others, but I love to engage in a way in which make people feel good, right? We were talking about reverse gossip. You ever hear of reverse gossip?
No, but I can imagine. Go ahead.
We're on a call with, I forget who it was, and this lady and I had a shared, a common acquaintance, right, on LinkedIn, Victoria LaPlante. And we were both saying the greatest things about Victoria. She's such a nice person. She had a great like relationship person. She's a mom now, and I knew her. She was just a young adult, and now she's like. And so we took a picture and we sent it to Victoria and said, we were saying good things about you. And this lady was so excited because she hasn't talked to you in 9 years, which is a good thing for relationship management, right? I had not talked to Victoria in 8 years. And here I am sending her a rando email with a picture of her and somebody she met 5 years ago and saying, we were saying great things about her. And of course, she's thinking, what were you saying about her? I was saying, you're hardworking, you're kind, you're thoughtful. It was a great time working with you in the program that I was working with you on. And I just wanted to remind you that you made an impact and continue to. And like, that was amazing for her. She sent back this flowy email with like 3 paragraphs. And I'm like, okay, that's what I was going for.
Yeah, and that's how you build a bridge of connection, right? Because if people just say they're okay or they're just good, you're not breaking through to actually form a deep relationship with them and getting to know who they actually are and what their inner world is like.
There's so many good things for that. Number one, I want to really know how you're feeling. If you're feeling down, our conversation is going to be a little bit different than if you're like, I'm gangbusters. Number two, you have to learn how you're feeling. And you're kind of an evolved guy, but lots of people don't know how they're feeling. And then as men, we're taught not to articulate that or to do the I'm good, I'm fine thing that you said a couple of minutes ago. Third of all, in any trusting relationship, I don't want you to not tell the truth. I'm asking you, and if you have to take 4 or 5 minutes in our mentor program, there are several people that, including myself, that cry a lot, right? And I learned this from Halligan as well. He cried all the time, unapologetically, tears streaming down his eyes, sometimes in front of 500 people. He's like, I just have a waterfall in my eyes, and I'm sad, and I'm going to cry. And it's such a beautiful thing for today's leaders, right? Because it was an admission of humanity, right? And I adopted that. And my friend Letty Henry, who's at Gong, and Rachel Leist, who's at HubSpot, we cry all the time. And we cry with happiness, and we cry when we're sad, and we cry when we feel, but at least we're like
alive.
Exactly. And that's life. And that's good life. And that's never going to be, or it's going to be hard to emulate with artificial intelligence. But that's why we're here. We're here to support each other. And if I don't know you're sad and tense or frustrated or something like that, then how are we going to have a meaningful conversation? But if I do, then it's a tip off that we can manage through that process in a way that we can get a greater outcome.
So when you're engaging with companies as an advisor, an investor, or as a leader, how do you assess company culture? And what's a healthy company culture look like?
Okay, so we were talking about modeling and the ability to have lived through that. And HubSpot had the greatest culture ever of any company I've been associated with. And the story is, and I know it almost firsthand, is that Brian was doing an offsite in the Boston area with other CEOs. And he sat next to this guy, Brian Engel, who was the president of iRobot, CEO or founder. And do you have a little Roomba running around your house somewhere?
No, I'm familiar with him though. Yeah.
And Brian turns to Brian and says, what do you know about culture? And Halligan goes, nothing, right? And Brian Engel says, I think it's going to be pretty important over the next 20 years. So Halligan goes back and asks Dharmesh, the co-founder, Dharmesh Shah, who's the Dalai Lama of HubSpot, amazing guy, and says, what do you know about culture? And Dharmesh says, I don't know anything about culture. And so Brian says, well, can you research a little bit? So a week later, Dharmesh comes back with a 128-page slide deck on the HubSpot Culture Code. And have you ever heard of the HubSpot Culture Code?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's infamous now because now it's 147 pages. And in like slide 3 or 4, it says your culture is your operating system for your employees. And I'm like, that is friggin' great. I went the first 30 years of my career, I never gave a second thought on culture. And now in our quarterly business reviews, it became number 1. In COVID, it was the second slide that we presented after the title slide. It was so impactful, right? I go all over the world talking about scaling in the modern era. And we talk about culture and growth. And culture comes first, not because it's the C, but because it's more important. And when I wrote the book, Inbound Organization, 2018, I asked all the senior executives at HubSpot, what's more important, your employees or your customers, right? And my buddy Frank Osher is like, who do you love more, your wife or your mother? Like, it's a kind of a trick. But the answer in 2026 is you got to love your employees more, because if you don't have happy employees, you'll never have happy customers. And that made such an incredible impact on me. And then when I was at HubSpot, Katie Burke became the first chief people officer. And Katie Burke is MIT trained, incredible. Now she's COO of Harvey, and she's incredible as the chief people officer. I'm like, what is a chief people officer? And it is somebody who is a tangible resource designed to help the employees be successful with whatever they're doing. And she wrote the playbook, and she was amazing at it. She took it very, very seriously. And Halligan has said many times she was the most valuable employee in that framework. And culture was a very important thing. The HubSpot culture code, if you didn't know it in the interview process, you'd never make it. The reason why HubSpot scaled to $4 billion is because we hired the best people. And Katie Burke was responsible, or partially responsible, running that organization. And what she realized is that if you didn't have that cultural component, we had the acronym HEART. H stand for humble. And anybody who's worked with an egotistical founder, oh my goodness, it's a horror show, right? And humble was something that everybody at HubSpot had. Number two, the E was effing effective. And then Katie turned it over to empathy, which was the right thing to do as the company grew. The A is adaptable. And that's critically important because in the modern age, everything changes so quickly. I think the R is remarkable, right? That is, we're only hiring top people. And T is transparent. And 1,000 times at HubSpot, if people weren't living to the culture code, right, we'd call them up. We're like, okay, that doesn't seem transparent to me. And it was a great embodiment of the type of people we wanted to work with, the shared kind of values and emotions we wanted to have, with an indication many times, having done 6 startups and 2 unicorns at HubSpot, I would say, no, you don't understand, right? You will remember these people for the rest of your life. Going through HubSpot for 5 years, 10 years, whatever, right? You will be connected for these people with this shared experience. And it's, I feel like everybody's grandfather. I was just at HubSpot World Headquarters last Tuesday for tech, right? And met, 70 people who all wanted to hug me. And I'm not a real big hugger, but it was so endearing. And I know all these people, and I saw them when they first got out of college, and now they're running divisions and they're senior executives and they're making all these kind of decisions. And it's such an amazing reflection on establishing that culture, leaning into hiring only the right people and making sure that they were successful. You got to give Katie Burke a tremendous amount of credit for not only creating that environment, but facilitating that over different stages of the company's.
Yeah. And it brings out the best in people.
It does.
Because they're happy, they're motivated, they're engaged. It's not just a sign up on the wall listing the values. If they're living it, you get so much magic out of it.
And it's almost impossible to do it the other way, right? There are some companies when we were talking about why, what's your why? Whenever somebody says to make $100 million, I'm like, well, okay, that's not going to cut it, right? That may be your goal, but how about a shared goal of ways that everybody is improving? Yeah, one of the famous phrases at HubSpot was grow better. And what we meant by grow better is, number one, we wanted individuals to grow better. We wanted teams to grow better. We wanted them to grow better in business, in leadership, as families, right? And it's hard to argue that a company mission with that focus on helping millions of small businesses grow better is not a worthy way of spending over a decade. And for me, the reason why, after 17 years, I've had it, but the reason I was there for so long is, what better way would you spend your time in training and teaching and helping both customers as well as partners, as well as employees? And it was a blast. It was hard work, right? But it was a blast. And the state of
you were just slanging software, right? You were trying to actually help businesses be successful.
Exactly. And individuals and teams and executives grow better. And I've carried that over to Tyre Angel. My mission statement is to do the most good for the universe. And you asked me how I came up with that. I stole it shamelessly from my son. My son was 22 years old, going to the University of Chicago. And he decided to drop out. And he had this big binder of like 500 pages of why it wasn't in our joint best interest for him to graduate. And I went around and I was trying to explain to him why having a college degree may be important in his future career. And after 2 days, he's like, Dad, all I want to do is do the most good I can for the universe. And when your kid says that, what's the response? I know. That's what I said. I'm like, son of a gun.
Sounds like you've been a good father. Your job is done.
I cried. And I'm like, okay, that's beautiful. Second of all, I give credit to his mama, who was amazing in raising a thinking kid, young adult now. And third of all, he's right. Number one, he can learn anything that he needs to learn on YouTube or hiring a consultant. Number two, he's an AI safety researcher. And the only thing I said is, all right, I'm stealing that phrase. I want to do the most good for the universe. And he's like, all right, Dad, knock yourself out. And I take that seriously. And that's the most fun. All these people are blaming and trying to control and do all these kind of things, right? They don't get what you get. They don't get that the real key of being a damn fine human being is relationship management and helping people. And like, I help our portfolio companies, I help new LPs, I wrote a mentorship program, I do office hours. Have I ever told you about Dan Tyre office hours?
No.
Okay, just Google it.
Okay.
I learned this from Mike Volpe, also a legendary HubSpot employee.
Yeah.
And 15 times a year, regardless of which city I'm in, I put my schedule available. It's all on my website, and I make myself available for people to cycle in. They can schedule 25 minutes or 50 minutes, and they have to send me in advance the 3 things they want to talk about, right? And having done this now for, 8 years, it always revolves. The questions always revolve around the same thing. They can't sell, or they can't deliver, or they have cash flow issues, or they have leadership issues, or culture, right? And having some experience of that, I take a look at it, I see if I can help them, and then I engage and try to listen with compassion and understand why it's hard for them and feed that back to them in a way in which they get all like pumped up. And I get so many nice like emails, thank you so much, I appreciate you spending it. But what they don't realize is, number one, I friggin' love it. Number two, it's like so much fun for me to try to help another human being. Right. And everybody has strengths. Everybody has weaknesses. Well, what we really want to do is just do the best we can to help. Right. And so I've been doing that for 8 years, and anybody can do it. Right. If you've got any level of experience, you need help on how to set up an office hour program, send me an email at dantyre@gmail.com, or get in touch with Jason. He's got all my contact information, and we'll rock it out.
That's right. And so what mistakes have you seen founders make when they move from early traction into scaling around some of these topics?
The thing that we tell everybody that is really hard is that, first of all, in my generation, it takes 8 years to build a good company. And what gets you from 0 to, let's say, 500,000 of revenue or ARR works against you. The very thing that you do, I see it all the time. All these incredibly motivated, positive, delusionally positive, actually, founders say, no, I'm just going to do what I did, and they can't, because it works against you. Because once you hit a certain threshold, you've got to recognize you're at that threshold, which is hard. That's why you need good advisors. Then you have to do something completely different, right? Like you need to hire managers, which most people, this is the first time they're doing it. You have to hire the right managers. Then you have to manage the managers, right? And if you don't do that, you don't scale. You flatline, which is why 90% of these startups aren't successful, is because managing the different levels. And then when you hit $3 million, it all changes again, right? It's completely different. And then you hit 5 million, and all the skills, right, that you needed to get to that level now become completely archaic, and you have to learn a whole new operating system. And Halligan says all the time, as you scale bigger, you got to do fewer things more effectively. But he was famous for coming into meetings, and he said, all right, what's the top 5 priorities? And everybody would spend 50 minutes on the top 5 priorities, and they'd be outlined and everything. And he's like, all right, well, you can only do 3. Take 2 off. And people like have spent like weeks preparing this information. They're like, what do you mean we can only do 3? And he was so good, because now they really had to make, he's like, you could do 5, but you're not going to get to it all. And I don't want you to do a half-assed job. I want you to, and I saw it time and time again. I shamelessly grabbed it and use it all the time. All right, what are your top priorities? And I'm a big believer in thinking in threes, partly because of me, partly because that's the capacity for most people to focus. And just by definition, if you're going to do three things or five things, three things will have a better outcome. So that transition of those different kind, and there's dozens of things under each one, but there has to be a recognition that just because you hit $1 million of ARR doesn't mean that you're done. In fact, it means that you got to do something completely different. The planning process has to be different. The focus process has to be different. The selection process, the culture, the transition from founder to professional sales, all of that is hard for a first-time entrepreneur, even a second-time entrepreneur, to manage it. That's why we strongly recommend that they have three good advisors who've been through the process before.
Yeah, no, that's great. So when you're evaluating entrepreneurs, how do you evaluate the relationship skills of a founder?
That's a good question. First of all, you got to understand where they're coming from. To be an entrepreneur, you have to be delusionally positive, right? About your product, about your market, about what you're doing, right? And what I try to do is observe, right? I try to understand, right? It's happened a couple of times in companies we invested in 2024, because they always say the right thing. No, I'll listen to you. I'll do the right thing until we fund them. And then it's a little bit different story. No, I don't think we're going to go in that direction. No, I don't think you really know what I'm talking about. I'm like, really? Right? And they're like, you don't quite understand. I'm like, I understand completely. If you don't prioritize revenue, you're going to be out of business in 18 months. And so we want to observe, number one, how they treat their subordinates, and whether they intrinsically understand how to build a great culture. We want to understand if they're open to the tangible things about building a great culture. That's what I learned at HubSpot. Building a great culture takes money, time, and effort, right? It's not just like waving a fairy wand and all of a sudden, like, you have a great culture, right? You know this better than anybody else. You have to have a good one-on-one program. You have to have a leadership program. You have to lean into teaching people how to do it. And when you're growing quickly, you're typically promoting from within. So it's just like the entrepreneurs. They're going to the next level. They've never been at this level before, so it's all brand new. So those relationship skills, right? I try to observe. I ask people, are you, what kind of leader are you? I want to see how they self-assess. And then we have a little spreadsheet that goes down and asks a handful of questions to understand if it's a blind spot for them, to understand if they really have a large level of experience to understand of how to deal through a hyper scale up program with people of different backgrounds and experiences, and then try to pinpoint what we can do to help. In many cases, we'll give them a mentor, right? Which is somebody who is not have operating experience for the company, but who can size up and help them see around corners. Not your boss. Somebody who could say, all right, I have this problem. I have, and somebody who's dealt with the problem before. So they can use the Socratic method and say, all right, you have a good problem definition. Number two, what are your options? Then three, what are you going to choose as your option? And be there if it either works or if in fact it goes sideways.
So I think you've worked a lot with underserved communities, and often I think people will say, hey, I don't have the connections or the relationships. And so how does relationship capital help expand access to opportunities for founders who may not already have some of those traditional networks that they're starting from?
Yeah, that's the flex we were talking about. I got 30,000 connections and I love to use it. I've got a blog article about if you want me to connect you to anybody else, right? If you're one of my connections or a new connection, I will do that. That's my role at this point in time in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We support entrepreneurship all over the world. Right. In the last 12 months, I've been to South America 4 times. I've been to Eastern Europe. I've been all over the United States. And that power of that network or that community is that you can use it. Here's the thing, though. You got to tell me who you want to connect with, and it has to be a tangible reason. You have to do all of the work. Number one, you have to send me an email that says, this is the person I want to connect with, and this is why. You have to write the blurb, and the blurb has to be, first of all, indicate that there is a lot of research behind it. And second of all, you got to lead with a freemium offer. If in fact they're not interested in engaging, there's still something that you have to give them that is of value to you, to them, for me making that connection. And then what I do is I send the email to you, Jason, and copy Kira And it's an email usually because it's all right there. And Kira has written it, and I'm like, Jason, we haven't talked in a couple of years. I think we did a good job on that podcast, but I know you're busy with other folks. My friend Kira has this ask. Will you please connect with her for 15 minutes? And that is the ask in 2026, because everybody's got 15 minutes. You might not have a half an hour and you don't want to take it, but for 15 minutes, yeah, Tyre is pretty engaging guest. I kind of owe him a little bit. And I traffic in that like scenario, so that all I'm asking is you connect for 15 minutes, right? Which doesn't seem like too much of a heavy lifting. Now, Kira needs to be coached, right? She better be prepared. It's not, hey, I'm Kira, I'm looking for a job. It's, Jason, I looked at your LinkedIn. How the heck did you go to the University of Kentucky or whatever? And amazing run in the HubSpot ecosystem and all of the background and experience. And this is my ask. Right. I'm looking for a connection to somebody in the Boston area. And I was wondering if you might be able to help me. And if you can, right, that's great. It's up to you. If you can't, she's got to thank you and do something kind or helpful. And like you would do that if I know that you do that for me. I do that for you. Right. And especially for people who don't have the reach that you and I have, there's no reason why we can't. It's our responsibility, and it's super fun. And I go about 95%. If somebody doesn't respond in a positive fashion, they're either mean or dead. And it's just, okay, I don't know which, but I don't really care. And 95% of the time people say, oh, of course, Tyre, buy me a breakfast sandwich, which is kind of my thing. Or, yeah, happy to help. Or because it's written in such a way that it's not intrusive. It's only 15 minutes. Everybody likes to help. Giving somebody an opportunity to help a young adult or somebody who's trying to find something, that's the whole basis for relationship management, why we're doing this podcast in the first place.
Yeah. It's becoming more important for sure. Yeah. So if there's shifting gears a little bit, if you've got a founder, an operator, or any professional that's listening, and let's say it's Monday morning and they want to start building a more meaningful relationship capital with their network, what's one daily habit, maybe for 15, 20 minutes, that they could do that's going to help them build their relationship capital?
Make a phone call. I know that's crazy talk in 2026, but I want you to pick up the phone and call somebody, right? And it's especially impactful if you haven't talked to them in 10 years. Right. Number one, I want to know if you're in the phone. Number two, I'm going to leave a voicemail that says, Jason, we haven't talked since, I don't know, 2018. But remember that time I dressed up as a lion and you were walking around taking my picture all the time? I remember that too. And I wanted to connect, right? Will you either call me at this number, or I'm going to send you an email and I'm going to include my scheduling link. Let's connect for 15 minutes, right? You do that, right? 10-year callbacks for people you haven't talked to. Oh my goodness. It's so much fun. I just did it with Scott Hunt, who I went to high school with. I haven't seen him in 50 years. And I saw him on Facebook and I'm like, all right, are you in New York? And he's like, no, I'm traveling. I'm like, all right, here, I want to connect. Here's my link. And now he's on my calendar for this week, right? I want to understand the twists and turns of a fellow human being in the last 50 years. Somebody I played soccer with, somebody who was very impactful in my life when I was 17 years old. And what can be better than that? And, right, picking up the phone and leaving that voicemail, right? First time you do it, it's a little hard. And that's what the essence of being a human being is. Not just sitting behind your desk doing all the emails, right? But reaching out and having a conversation just like we're doing today.
And so what's one practice that you use to build rapport with almost anybody?
First of all, I always do the research, right? I should know where you went to college. I should know what the college mascot was, right? And then I'm going to read the room, right? I'm going to see whether PhDs and really smart people don't like the big Dan Tyre energy. They find it off-putting. So I'm going to modify my behavior. If I can find the disc profile, put it in AI, what's Jason's disc profile? Because I want to understand if I should start off with the big energy but in the first 10 seconds, I'll know, right? And I always say, Jason, tell me about you. And it's a little bit forceful. And usually people smile just like that. Sometimes they laugh and they're like, what do you want to know? I'm like, give me the 6-minute version. Right. And then you're like, okay, that's pretty good. Right. Which I've said a million times. It's in the public domain. When you ask somebody for the 6-minute version, right, you're giving them an opportunity to open up a little bit. You're giving them an opportunity to hit the highlights. And hopefully they don't go on and on forever, right? Sometimes it happens, but it's usually pretty good. And those people are S's in the DISC profile. So they're very, very social. So the way they're building trust is they're telling you all about these details of things that they think that are very important for you to hear. And, right? That's okay too. And then once I hear a little bit about them, right, with that level of experience and natural curiosity, right? I always want to understand, like the other day, I learned a ton about turkey vultures. Do you know anything about turkey vultures?
Just what they look like.
What they look like. Do you know there's 500,000 turkey vultures that go from North America to South America every single year in the great turkey vulture migration, right? Which I just like, this guy's studying turkey vultures. My buddy Sean Poe is a snake guy. Right? I'm like, you're a snake guy? He's like, yeah, I went into snakes at Harvard because my instructor told me it's easy to
From
rise.
Sage Shoes, Sean, you're talking about.
Yeah, Sean Poe.
I
He's
know
like,
Sean, yeah.
Sean Space, and he's a snake guy, right? You don't run into that many snake guys. And he went into snakes because the top dogs in the industry get bitten by snakes all the time. So, and they don't always survive. So his thesis guy, the guy who was doing his thesis was, I don't know, bitten by a black mamba or something. So he decided to go into venture capital a while ago. But that natural curiosity, you're just talking to people, figuring out what they're all about, right? Getting them to talk. Yeah, like for most people, their husband doesn't listen to them, their wife doesn't listen to them, their kids don't listen to them, boss doesn't listen to them. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to say, hold on a second, right? Tell me more about that, right? That's a magic phrase. When you're, I know you know, you're digging into something like, hold on, roll that back. You know a lot about turkey vultures. Why do you know so much about turkey vultures? And then it's like you're having a barbecue or they're on your bowling team. And then there's a famous blog article that I wrote for HubSpot about anybody. And we did an inbound presentation on building rapport. It's not small talk, right? Building rapport is a central part of any type of engagement. Right. And you want to understand and you want the other person to understand that you actually care. And you should actually care because the whole relationship management thing is all about really an underlying foundation of we want to connect with our fellow mankind, right? Number one is the right thing to do. Number two, there might be a foundation for transactions, right? And the exact antithesis of the thousands of people who say, Dan, I saw your thing on LinkedIn and they never saw it and they don't really care. And that's the difference between a human-oriented outreach and like spam stuff and the AI age.
So that probably leads into this next one, which is about what's one relationship building mistake that you're seeing in today's environment that ambitious leaders should stop making immediately?
Yeah. Don't tell me you want to connect because you noticed my LinkedIn profile, because you and 1,000 people this week say the same thing, right? And all right, just go to my website or go to my LinkedIn, just say one thing that shows that you took 5 seconds. You can put me into any AI and you'll find all of the different kind of things. It takes 5 seconds. And if you think it must work or else people wouldn't do it. But if you think that that's the way to start a business relationship where you send the same stupid email to everybody, then you're not the kind of person that we're going to have a fruitful relationship with.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic and more energizing than I expected.
My goodness. You didn't obviously read my notes yet. But I told you we weren't going to be able to stop 30 minutes. It
was good. This has been fantastic. I do have one more question, though.
Go.
Which is, what is the most unlikely or surprising relationship that you formed in your career that's ended up becoming a strategic advantage?
Okay, I'm business partners with a musician by the name of Ed Sheeran. Have you ever heard of Ed Sheeran?
Sure.
So I'm a part owner in the Ipswich Town Tractor Boys, right, which is a team in the Championship League in England that just got promoted to the English Premier League, right? And he's a fellow owner, right? So that's pretty big flex. I ask everybody, you know who Ed Sheeran is? And everybody knows who Ed Sheeran is. I'm like, he got 1 billion downloads in Spotify. And when I go to Ipswich, he sits in the owner's box frequently.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, Dan, this was fantastic. I love it. And thank you so much for taking the time out today. And we ran over, but you gave so many golden nuggets and value for people. So I look forward to staying in touch with you, and let's talk soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. What a fantastic conversation with Dan Tyre. Today's episode reminded us that relationship capital is not just about who can help you grow. It's about who you become while helping others grow. Dan's career shows that culture, attitude, mentorship, and generosity can become real strategic advantages when leaders treat people as the center of every company. To help us grow this community, please take 30 seconds to follow, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It's the best way to support the show and give a value deposit to your network. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Relationship Capitalists. If today's conversation sparked something for you, the best way to invest in your own relationship capital is simple. Share this episode with one person in your network who needs to hear it. To learn more about how to build and scale your relationship capital through proven frameworks and simple daily actions, visit relationshipcapital.com. And if you haven't already, search for Relationship Capitalists on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Relationship Capitalists is produced by Fane, the B2B podcast agency that grows your business. I'm Jason Masciarelli. Thanks for being here.